Nobody who is born blind has ever gotten schizophrenia, as far as researchers know, and I don't mean just in the United States. I mean globally. There has never been a recorded case. In fact, if you go blind within the first year of life, you don't get schizophrenia. Researchers think they finally know why, and we'll talk about it. Schizophrenia is a psychotic disorder, and it's believed to be a perception problem. So your brain thinks it's seeing something or hearing something, and it is just misunderstanding what it's looking at. You're constantly predicting what you're going to see. What's happening is never at the exact same time. This is why there's eye puzzles, where you can look at a pattern and it will change. It's the prediction engine breaking down. But with schizophrenia, that's constant. It's also not just limited to what you're looking at. Schizophrenia can be paranoid, in which you have beliefs like people are after you, or there's bugs in the walls, or in your skin. It is not a pleasant thing to have. And researchers have mapped the unusual patterns in thought in the brain. Connections that shouldn't be there are being made, and connections that really ought to be there just aren't. But what in the world is special about being blind? Now, if you go blind earlier, you have a reduced risk of schizophrenia, and there is that 1-year cutoff. And people with hearing loss do not have a reduced risk. Well, the going theory is that your brain, being a predictive engine, has to work differently when you don't have vision. Your eyes are one of the first things that you use in order to make sense of the world around you. Have you ever looked at something and just been not sure what you were looking at, and it took a minute for it to come into shape? Kind of like that. If you're blind, you have to have a really good prediction engine in order to function in the world. And I gotta say, echolocation is pretty darn cool. Yes, some people are able to find their way in the world by listening to sound waves bouncing off of objects, and I could not even imagine. Now, there are several things we should think about when we're trying to figure out why this might be. One of them might be, is it just that congenital blindness and schizophrenia are so rare that we've never had a case? No, that seems unlikely. There would be at least 600 people who would have to be schizophrenic and congenitally blind in the US today. Another question you might have is, how could that be if schizophrenia can be genetic? And you gotta know, not everything that is genetic is demonstrated. You can have identical twins where one has a condition and the other does not, because that's epigenetic. Your experiences change the way your genetics present themselves. Phenotype and genotype. Now, there are several caveats. So if you go blind when you are under 1 year old, when you get older and you get Alzheimer's, you're not going to have visual field hallucinations. However, if you go blind later, after that 1 year mark, you are more likely to get visual hallucinations if you get a degenerative brain condition later. And blindness is not protective of degenerative brain conditions. And going blind later can actually make it more likely that you'll get something like Alzheimer's, and nobody knows why. Now, all of this stuff could be any one answer, or it's more likely a combination of all of them. I do not think it is impossible. Nothing is impossible for someone who is blind from birth to get schizophrenia. That just doesn't make logical sense unless I'm missing something. What is really interesting about this particular thing is that there are no cases, none. Usually we see some strange outliers, or at least a misdiagnosis, but again, none. I don't know if this was useful to you, but it's something you can bother your family with. A fun fact. Follow for more.